Mila Chen stood near the front row of the medical school auditorium, staring at two empty seats reserved for her parents. Around her, families laughed, hugged, and prepared cameras for one of the biggest moments of their children's lives. Yet those two seats remained painfully vacant. The usher glanced at them, and then at Mila. "Are these still reserved for your parents?" Mila forced a smile. "Not anymore." Her phone buzzed. "Mom, send pictures later. Have fun." That was all. No apology. No explanation. Just 3 words that somehow hurt more than complete silence. 2 days earlier, Mila had pleaded with her parents to attend. "This ceremony only happens once," she had said. Her mother shrugged. "Your brother's ski vacation was already planned. It's my white coat ceremony. You'll have graduation too." As if years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and endless exams could be reduced to just another event, Mila slipped her phone away before anyone could notice her trembling hands. Then a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Mila." She turned to see Dr. Raymond Foster, the physician who had mentored her throughout medical school. His eyes briefly moved toward the empty seats. He understood immediately. Without asking questions, he walked toward an elderly couple standing nearby. "Mom, Dad," he said gently. "Would you help me with something?" The couple followed him over. Dr. Foster smiled warmly. "No one should spend today looking at empty chairs." Mila shook her head. "I couldn't ask that." "You didn't," Mrs. Foster replied instantly. "We're offering." Her husband nodded, "And we'd be honored." Emotion tightened Mila's throat. "Thank you." Minutes later, the Fosters settled into the seats her parents had abandoned. For the first time that morning, Mila felt slightly less alone. The auditorium lights dimmed as students gathered backstage. Excited conversations filled the air. My grandparents drove 8 hours. My whole family came. My little sister made me a sign. Mila smiled politely whenever someone spoke to her. She never mentioned that her parents had chosen a ski resort over her ceremony. The painful truth had become impossible to ignore. Money was never the issue. Her parents had claimed flights and hotels were too expensive. Then they somehow found plenty of money for Ethan's vacation. The problem wasn't finances. The problem was priorities. And Mila wasn't one of them. Dr. Foster placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You earned today," he said. "Don't let someone else's decisions steal it." Before Mila could respond, 2 event staff members approached the front row. One carried a clipboard, the other wore a headset. They quietly confirmed that the elderly couple would remain seated there until the ceremony ended. Dr. Foster frowned. "Is something wrong?" The staff member smiled politely. "Just protocol." Yet after they walked away, Mila noticed the uneasy look exchanged between them. Something unusual was happening, and she had no idea that before the day ended, her life would change forever. Backstage, the excitement continued building as students lined up for the ceremony. Everyone seemed to have family stories to share. My dad flew in from Seattle. My grandparents drove all night. My brothers made posters. Mila smiled and congratulated them. But every conversation reminded her of who wasn't there. Her parents, Agan. Her classmate Jasmine adjusted her white coat and looked over. "I thought your family was coming?" Mila hesitated. They had another commitment. Jasmine seemed confused, but didn't press further. A photographer called for a group picture, and the conversation ended. Mila was grateful. The silence allowed old memories to creep back in when Ethan had competed in a ski tournament during high school. Their parents had driven through a snowstorm to support him. When Mila won a major undergraduate research award, her mother sent a text message 3 hours later. "Congratulations. Tell us about it sometime. There was always a reason, always an excuse, always something more important. Medical school hadn't changed anything. Months earlier, when Mila first invited them to today's ceremony, her father had sighed. Flights are expensive. Hotels aren't cheap. We'll try. 3 weeks later, Ethan proudly posted photos online of expensive ski equipment. The caption read, "Family vacation loading." That was when Mila finally understood. The issue had never been money. It was choice. And every time, they chose Ethan. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Dr. Foster's parents stepped into the room. Mrs. Foster held out a neatly folded handkerchief decorated with blue flowers. "I always carry extras," she said with a smile. "Happy tears tend to appear at ceremonies." Mr. Foster chuckled. "And if they don't, we'll pretend we never saw anything." Mila laughed for the first time that day. "Thank you." Mrs. Foster squeezed her hand. "You don't have to thank us." A production assistant suddenly entered. "Ms. Chen?" "Yes? Could we get a quick photograph with your guests?" "Of course." Mila assumed it was for the school's social media coverage. Several photos were taken. Then the assistant hurried away without explanation. A few minutes later, another staff member appeared wearing a headset. She quietly spoke to Dr. Foster's parents. "Please remain in your seats throughout the ceremony." Both looked confused. "So we're not allowed to leave?" Mr. Foster joked. The woman smiled nervously. "It's important." Before anyone could ask questions, the opening music began. The ceremony was starting. Rows of students entered the packed auditorium, while applause thundered through the room. Mila spotted Dr. Foster's parents immediately. The moment they saw her, they stood and waved proudly. "That's our future doctor!" Mr. Foster shouted. Several nearby families joined the applause. Unexpected warmth spread through Mila's chest. For a brief moment, the empty seats no longer mattered. She had no way of knowing that cameras throughout the auditorium were already focusing on her. And somewhere, hundreds of miles away, her parents were enjoying lunch at a luxury ski resort, completely unaware that the biggest moment of Mila's life was about to become national news. The ceremony continued as one student after another crossed the stage. Each name was followed by cheers, whistles, and proud applause from family members. Then the announcer called, "Aria Bennett." Mila took a deep breath and stepped forward. Thunderous applause filled the auditorium. She accepted her white coat and shook hands with the faculty members waiting on stage. From the front row, Dr. Foster's parents jumped to their feet again. "That's our doctor!" Mr. Foster called proudly. The audience laughed and clapped even harder. Mila felt tears forming but managed to keep smiling. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen. After the final student received a white coat, everyone expected the ceremony to end. Instead, the Master of Ceremonies returned to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "before we conclude today's program, we have one final presentation." The room immediately grew quiet. Mila exchanged confused looks with her classmates. Nobody had mentioned another award. The host continued. Each year, hospitals, physicians, and community organizations from across the nation submit nominations recognizing exceptional service. A large screen behind the stage lit up. This year's recipient has demonstrated extraordinary dedication to underserved communities while maintaining outstanding academic performance. Whispers spread through the audience. "What's this? I've never heard of this award." Neither had Mila. The host opened a gold envelope. The recipient will receive the National Community Impact Award. Applause began. Then the host added, "Along with a community development grant worth $750,000. The auditorium fell completely silent. Mila stared in disbelief. Surely she had heard wrong. $750,000? People around her looked equally stunned. The host smiled. Aria Bennett, please join us on stage. For several seconds, Mila didn't move. She honestly thought someone else must share her name. Dr. Foster stepped forward, grinning. Go on. Her legs felt weak as she walked toward the podium. The audience exploded into applause. Faculty members rose from their seats. Students began cheering. Mila reached the stage in a daze. Then a producer approached Dr. Foster's parents. Would you both come up here as well? The elderly couple looked shocked but followed. Once they stood beside Mila, the host addressed the crowd. Today we'd also like to recognize the people who supported our recipient. Mrs. Foster immediately laughed. Oh, we should clarify something. The room grew quiet. We aren't Aria's biological parents. A murmur spread across the audience. Mr. Foster nodded. We met her through our son. He looked proudly at Mila. When we learned she'd be sitting alone today, we volunteered to fill the empty seats. The audience became silent. Many people visibly wiped away tears. Mrs. Foster squeezed Mila's hand. No one deserves to celebrate a day like this alone. Cameras captured every second. Within minutes, clips from the ceremony were spreading across social media. Thousands of viewers began asking the same question. If those aren't her parents, where are they? Far away at a ski resort, phones suddenly began ringing. And for the first time all day, Mila's parents realized something was terribly wrong. Hundreds of miles away, Aria Bennett's parents were enjoying lunch at a luxury ski resort when their phones suddenly exploded with notifications, doxed texts, calls, massed from relatives, links from old friends. Her mother frowned as her phone vibrated nonstop. What is going on? Her father opened one of the messages. A video appeared. The first image showed Aria standing on stage beside Dr. Foster's parents. Below it were thousands of comments. Where are her real parents? How could anyone miss this moment? That poor girl deserved better. His face drained of color. Oh no. Her mother grabbed the phone. The next video showed Mrs. Foster explaining that they weren't Aria's biological parents. Then came the award announcement, then the standing ovation, then the interviews. Millions of people had already seen it. Call her, her mother whispered. Immediately, back at the medical center, Aria's own phone wouldn't stop ringing. 30 missed calls became 50. 50 became 80. By evening, there were more than 90. She ignored everyone. Hours later, after the reporters left and the celebrations ended, she finally sat alone in the hospital courtyard. The phone rang again. Mom! This time, Aria answered. Before she could speak, her mother rushed into tears. People think we're terrible parents. Aria closed her eyes. You skipped my ceremony. Silence. Her father took the phone. We didn't know any of this would happen. I know, Aria replied calmly. That's not why I'm hurt. Neither parent spoke. You didn't miss it because of an emergency. You didn't miss it because you couldn't afford it. You missed it because you decided something else mattered more. The truth landed heavily between them. For the first time, there was no excuse left to give. A few days later, Dr. Foster finally explained the secret. Months earlier, he had quietly nominated Aria for the National Community Impact Award. So had hospitals where she volunteered, doctors she worked beside, community organizations she helped. Every recommendation described the same thing. While others focused on grades and recognition, Aria consistently showed up for people who had nowhere else to turn. The committee selected her unanimously. The $750 Zuzos and grant would now fund healthcare programs for underserved families across the region. The ceremony became national news. But the attention eventually faded. What remained was something far more important: clarity. Over the following weeks, Arya's parents repeatedly asked to meet. Finally, she agreed. Her mother looked exhausted. "We're embarrassed," she admitted. Arya nodded slowly. "I was hurt. The difference was impossible to ignore." After years of chasing approval, she finally understood something. Some people would never value her the way she deserved, and she no longer needed them to. Months later, when Arya began her residency, the front row was full once again. Dr. Foster was there. His parents were there. Friends who had become family were there. Every seat was occupied by someone who genuinely wanted to celebrate her success. Her parents weren't invited. As Arya walked across the stage, she didn't glance toward the entrance. She wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. Because she had finally learned the lesson that changed her life. Family isn't defined by who should show up. It's defined by who actually does.